Welcome to the Hockey PDOcast. My name is Dimitri Filipovich, and joining me here in studio, my good buddy Thomas Drance. Tom, what's going on, man?
Let's go, buddy. Excited about this one.
I'm very excited about this one. We teased it a bit yesterday. We had Todd Diamond on. We're doing People in the Game week, and we had Todd Diamond on. And I got to say, I was excited about it because I was a fan of the work he'd done certainly this offseason and cleaning up in free agency.
So were his clients.
And
yeah.
you had spoken highly about him, and then he just blew me away. Like, he came in hot. We were making jokes about Don Waddell and his interactions with him. He was giving us the insight on William Eklund's bridge deal this summer. It was fantastic. We're going to keep it going. We got the agent perspective. We're going to get the player perspective now. Joining us in studio, Brenden Dillon, making his return appearance after a triumphant debut last year. I got so much good feedback on that show. People loved your candor, the way you came in. We talked a lot about your free agency and signing with the Devils and everything. So it's good to have you back. How's it going, man?
Yeah, no, it's going great. It's almost the anniversary of it. It was right around early mid-July, I think, last year. So
it was.
We're gonna make this a yearly thing, I guess.
It will be. We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see how
I gotta hold up
but
to expectations. We set the bar last summer, so.
Well, I think that means the expectations are on me, right? Because I got to come in and not mess with the chemistry. I've got to fit in.
Yeah, there's one different denominator this year, and so transfer. We'll see how it goes.
So let's start with this because, as I said, when I had you on last year, we were sort of looking ahead to your decision to sign with the Devils, kind of what that would look like, the expectations heading in. You got a year under your belt now. I want to talk to you a little bit about how that transpired because I think, Tom and I spoke probably a disproportionate amount of time about the Devils this season. And in particular, I think it was right up until the Christmas break, right? You guys had some of the best defensive metrics in the league. I think you were actually leading the league in goals against at the time with the fewest allowed, top 3 in pretty much every metric you look at. And in watching you guys play, it was exactly what I had expected from a Sheldon Keefe team, especially with the personnel group you guys had, which was kind of this modern way of defending, right? It was taking away time and space, just having the puck more often than your opponent. There was that one game right before the holiday break. I remember Tom and I were watching it here in studio. It was against the Rangers. I think you guys were at home.
Yeah, last game before Christmas.
And you had run off this streak of keeping opponents to like 12 to 15 shots on goal pretty much the entire time. I think the Rangers were at 12 in that one. And it was really the peak of that. Now, obviously, you guys had a bunch of injuries the rest of the way leading into the postseason. But I kind of want to talk to you a little bit about how that transition was, what that sort of whether it met your expectations in terms of what you expected from the style of play, and then kind of how that all unfolded, obviously, in your first year being there.
Yeah, it was, for a defensive guy, it was nice that we were really from training camp put an emphasis on that. And I think that was kind of the messaging from day one. Like, we always knew, like, the Devils, they've been known as a team that can score and tons of offense, and Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt, Nico Hischier, Timo Meier, they could score goals. And so we worked on defense, and we, talked about structure. We played with structure and, kind of showed that we could do it. And unfortunately, you always talk about teams when they're rolling. The last thing you want is to have a break of any sort. And
eating some holiday food.
Yeah, call it 2 days, call it 2 weeks. We basically from Christmas on, we're really just trying to get back to that. And it was a combination of everything. Like, of course, I think Kiefer, of course, laid out the plan for us, but I think the guys really bought into it, and we're like, okay, maybe a little bit less on this side to have a little bit more of the focus on D, and we were winning hockey games, which always helps, and everybody then gets excited about it and dials it in. And as you said, it was kind of like a modern day. It's not like we were just like, hey, guys, we're not crossing the red line, and we're getting back into the
dump it in, get back on.
Yeah, the Devils 90s of just trap it up. We were playing fairly, I think our power play was still cooking, which obviously helps, and our special teams were a big focus point on, PK and PP. But
no, don't be humble about it. I think you guys were top 3 in
you don't
PK by the end of the
brag
year,
too much,
and you led the team in ice
second
time
best
there.
PK.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, second best PK in the league, which we'll tip our cap to. And PP, I think PP was
I don't know
third.
if it was top 3. I think it was top 3, but not 3.
Okay. And not 1, but yeah. We made a focus on that stuff too, because I think as the season progressed and you get into the bulk of the kind of December to February months where it's a grind and there are starting to be some injuries. You need your special teams to be good, but you also need your defending to be good. And we had some great goaltending too. Marky and Jake had great seasons. And all in all, it was just a little bit of a combination of everything. There was lots of new personnel. I think between the forwards and D, there was at least 5 or 6 new bodies, new coaching staff, new goalies. So a lot of change.
With an opportunity, because it's been interesting to see, we see so much Jack Hughes on highlight reels. You watch him play on the power play, and he, goes to the puck, beaver tails, and everyone resets around him. And I mean, the skill level of your top end guys is so wild. And yet, when the Devils, both this season but also before you went there, were at their best, it was using the speed of their top end guys in the service of defending.
Yeah.
Are those guys underrated in terms of their defensive abilities, what you see on a regular basis?
I think so. I mean, I just think until you can really get in and day to day be on the ice with, practice with, see their habits, like especially for a guy that was in the West for most of my career,
right?
You can't really appreciate how good those players are and how much good they do. Like, I think a guy like Nico Hischier might have been second in the league in faceoffs taken this year, and he also scored 30 goals and was also, matched up against top lines and doing all these things. And obviously before Jack got injured was having a fantastic year. And we all, he's a superstar. He's leads our team in that. He is the face of the Devils, which is exciting to be a part of. And when you see these guys and the work they put in, and then you bring in the new staff this year and kind of the new approach to doing things. It's funny when I talk to like Brader and these guys, like I think Sheldon Keefe was like their like fourth coach in 5 or 6 years, right? Like they had, I think it was Hines, Lindy Ruff, Travis Green, and like Sheldon Keefe. So there's a lot of moving parts too. And obviously Kiefer's back this year, and I think that's something for us as the players. Like I was fortunate enough to be in San Jose for 5 of my 6 years was with Pete DeBoer. So it's like years 2, 3, 4, 5. Like there's no excuses. You know how we play.
Yeah.
You know what the practices are most likely going to be like. You know what training camp's going to look like. There's not really a question mark of okay, how are we expected to play? Like what role does he want me in? Which as you get older, you understand in the niche that you're in what you need to do to be successful, and you're always trying to get better and grow your game every year. But I think for those top end guys, when you watch the Barkovs, like Barkov can put up still 70, 80, 90 points, 100 points a year and shut down the top guys and have that mindset of it. And I think we know we're talking about one of the best players in the world, but I think for our team and our top end guys, they're really motivated to be that. They want to be up there with the best, and this year coming up an Olympic year again, where it's best on best during the NHL season and during that. So all those guys, I had a lot more of an appreciation for how they are. How good they are, just really, and everything.
Well, when watching the Four Nations, we spoke about this a lot of the time because we were doing shows right after, particularly after the final game against Canada, the Team USA lost, and there was this perception coming out of that tournament because Jack Hughes had played down the lineup in a different role, and people were just looking at his point totals, and it wasn't necessarily reflective of what you'd expect from him in New Jersey, where he gets to play top unit power play. Everything's kind of funneling through him, and there was this perception for whatever reason that like he was disappointing in that tournament, as if it proved that like he couldn't hang with the best in the world. And we were pushing back strongly at the time because you go and watch those, and that line was tasked with so much of the defensive responsibilities, and in terms of kind of tracking and sticking to guys in the neutral zone, just having the puck and killing time when Canada had their best players out there. And I thought he did a phenomenal job in that. And sort of it takes a little rewiring, right? Because I think like in the 90s and early 2000s and even 2010s, defensive forwards all looked a certain way in terms of both body type, but then also like how they were playing in terms of just like holding on to guys and not really letting them do what they wanted to do.
And there's still some of that.
And there is still some of that, especially once you get to the playoffs, but he does it in a much different manner. And there's a bunch of guys around the league you could say that about. And so part of it is just effort and applying yourself, but I think you've already seen that through some of these checkpoints. And so I'm really glad Tom brought that up. I'm curious. Like I have a bunch of questions here for you in terms of the season you just had, and I'm fascinated to hear your take on who the toughest opponent you guys matched up with was, because I think for most teams the answer would be Florida, but you guys actually played them pretty well. You had that back-to-back
crazy
in November, and those were two of the best games I thought I watched from the Devils all year. In particular, one of those where I think it was like a 6-2 final, and you guys were cooking offensively. Lost the third one at home in a shootout, but it was a tight game. Held them to 4 goals in those 3 games. So maybe that's not your answer, although as a defenseman, I mean, dealing with that forecheck must be a nightmare. So
it's so funny. Like even from my first year till now, I feel like my first year, there's a couple teams where you're going, you're like, okay, no matter how bad we play tonight, we're probably winning.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not going to say those teams now, but now, like, the parity of the league, like, it doesn't matter, if this past year, I don't even know who finished, like, Chicago or, like those teams have chances to win every night. A goalie gets hot, the power play gets hot, their superstar takes over the games, whatever it is. So every team is really good. But Florida, for sure, when you look at that team and playing against them, yeah, we won those back-to-back games in Florida, but you're going in after you're like, holy, the bodies.
You felt every one of those
Oh,
shifts?
you felt every one of the hits. You felt every one of the box outs. You felt every one of the, just the battle stuff that went on. And I know Carolina's a team, again, that, we all know, like we played them in playoffs, and, you know what to expect from them. Like, the forecheck's coming. That the flip is coming out from the D. Like this stuff. And they know that they know it's coming, right? But it's hard hockey to play against, and Florida played that way too. We had I remember playing Vegas this year in Jersey, and it was just like men against boys. They were so good. So rock solid. I mean, when teams are built through the middle, and their centermen, the Eichels, I think that, it was like Jack Eichel, Hurdle, Nick Waugh. That's a pretty deadly, 1 through 3, and then you throw in the guys that they, pick up at the deadline and whatnot. I think for me, I remember that Vegas game being like, wow, like that's a hockey team. They're good. Florida, the same thing, and I think that's a credit to those teams that year after year seem to be always having success.
Yeah. You bring up Carolina and Florida, and I find it interesting the way that we're seeing sort of that Brenden style stress hockey, right?
Yeah.
Kind of dominate in the East anyway.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, you've been around long enough to sort of see changes in terms of the way the NHL game's played, and sort of what the emphasis is, and what the best teams are doing to win.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if there's been a shift where, away to some extent from a possession-based game, a game that's maybe a little bit more based off of retrievals, and how do you experience that as a, defensive defenseman who thinks a lot about your craft?
Yeah.
Well, don't tell him short. I think you scored 8 goals last 2 years ago.
Grant, I don't want to brag. I had 8 a couple of years ago.
Hey, man, we all remember you had the overtime goal beating the Canucks in their golden era season 2, right?
Far
it was
side,
a wicked
Corey Schneider, Jamie Benn, and Jaromir Jagr.
Nasty business.
That was
buddy.
that might be.
I'm not selling this guy.
I don't know. I don't know if I've scored a nicer goal than that, to be honest. I might have gotten a little too excited early, but I got so excited.
Yeah, sorry.
Question. Yeah. No, I really do think like that stress hockey. There's a fine line. You're not gonna ask Jack Hughes to get over the red line and dump it in every time.
Right.
The same way that you wouldn't want Quinn Hughes just, high flipping it out of the zone every time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a happy medium of that kind of game. And, the Sebastian Ahos, the Andrei Svechnikovs, like those are high-end talented players. And I think in a perfect world, finding that mix where, okay, the D-man has a really good gap, part of my forwards are changing. I really don't have anything here, and maybe instead of me trying to toe drag it and turning it over and going the other way, I'm going to put the puck in a good spot where, the guy's coming on with Fred. Like, that's kind of the mindset, I feel like, of those high-end guys, the Sam Reinharts, the Matthew Tkachuk's, the Barkovs. Like, these guys can make those plays, and they've proven that they can make those plays. But at the same time, they can recognize when is it that worth me taking that one-on-one opportunity? Because as a D-man, I still feel the hardest play in hockey is a rim around the yellow with, crappy NHL ice from the NBA game the night before on whatever, puck bouncing, and Tom Wilson's coming in to absolutely run you through the boards. How do I pick that puck up off the yellow, probably on my backhand most likely, with pressure, 5 guys coming at you, find the open guy, hit it on the tape, get that puck going north. And that's a skill that I've been working on for 34 years. I think every D-man, every practice, we're working on it, and it's such an emphasis to basically get the puck off the yellow, get the puck to the middle, and ultimately you want to get it out of your zone, which sometimes that is the off the glass note, sometimes it is the high flip. but it's definitely a skill just the same way as it is having a one-timer you put under the bar.
With those teams, though, that are really disruption-based in terms of how they're looking to attack you, do you feel a different level of pressure skating back today than you would have 5-6 years ago? Because it looks to me like you would. Like,
no,
watching,
100%.
I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, and it's relentless, and that's part of the kind of like the game within the game. Like, yeah, there's the game within the game of the fight and the intimidation factor, but there's also the game within the game of turning a team over and out-changing them and having guys be stuck on the ice for a minute, 2 minutes at a time, having them ice it and getting fresh guys out there, getting your top guys out. So that's kind of where I feel like, a team like Carolina tries to come at you. Every team watches video now. Every team is doing their homework, and, there's no perfect system out there. I think we are, for the most part, a copycat league. So whatever Florida did last year, teams are going to try and do this year. Same thing that it was when Vegas won. Same thing it was when, all these other teams win the next year because that team was the best. So there's absolutely a higher level of that. There's also, when you're playing a team that's run and gun, that's got a ton of skill offensively, you got to be aware of that too. Like, some teams, whether they're coached to do that or they just do that, or, they almost refuse to dump it. And it's like, okay.
Montreal, right?
Montreal, where it's, you have to have your gaps be on point. Your stick's got to be there because, even though this guy's going to try and beat you one-on-one, like, a Cole Caulfield or a Nick Suzuki can't do that.
Yeah.
And, you don't want to be on TSN top 10, getting embarrassed. So there's a fine line.
Have you ever been on, because they were talking about this during the playoffs this year, have you ever been on the receiving end of one of those, you're going back to play the puck, Tom Wilson's barreling down on you and he warns you beforehand, tells you he's coming?
Well, Willie's a good buddy of mine, so
Yeah.
I'd like to think that before he would blow me up, he would at least give me a heads up, Dillon, I'm coming. Of course, he repay the favor on that end, but I think to a point, you never want anybody to get hurt, and I think
of course.
From the most physical guys, I know Tom, I know other physical, Jamie, Ben, myself, like, you never want anybody to get hurt ever in the game, but not all of us run the power play. So there are, forechecking, open ice hits, whatever that might be. You got to be cognizant of that, and you want guys to be playing and having success. But, definitely forechecks, you got to have your head up.
I'm curious for your take on this, because I think I've asked a bunch of defensemen and varying opinions on it. What do you think is tougher to deal with? A guy who's going to come in and try to blow you up and hit you, or a guy who's with his motor and his reach and everything going to try to knock the puck away and disrupt that way, in terms of, like, as the guy playing the puck, where let's say your partner retrieves it and bumps it over to you, just like the most annoying forecheckers to deal with, and what your personal preference is and what you think is the most effective in today's game?
So I think that's similar to the, we talk about the Sebastian Aho, when to dump it in, when to hold on to it, make a play, is kind of like the defensive mindset of that, right? Like, I'm going back for this puck. I'm looking at it like, who's coming in on me? Is this, a Brock Besser, Elias Pettersson? Or, is this, again, like a Tom Wilson or a Sam Bennett, like, coming in that's just going to put me through the wall? And that comes into, like, the deception part of going back for pucks. Am I doing a fake, like, with certain guys? If Ryan Reeves is coming, like, I'm getting that out of my hands and going the other way. If some of these skilled guys are coming in that, again, aren't, they play hard and they can do that, but a lot of times, like a Mitch Marner, that's one of the best things I think about him, and why he's one of the best penalty killers in the game, is because his instincts and his ability to read the play and see, okay, most oftentimes I remember on that pre-scope, New Jersey's trying to go with the weak side, so when Dillon goes back, he's probably going over to Hamilton, who's then going to keep it going, versus me seeing that, maybe catching him going an extra step, faking that, coming back up the wall, making the play.
Yep.
And, there's a cat and mouse game that happens a lot. And again, that kind of goes back to that game within the game and in all facets of it.
Yeah, I mean, when Tom was talking about kind of the copycat element and how it's shifted in terms of the playing style right now, you see that in the playoffs a lot, right? In terms of how predominantly just important the forecheck game is, and how many turnovers are caused out that, because you're not having a bunch of real estate to just move up and down the ice freely anymore, and that's why I think like pure skating speed in terms of straight line A to B is probably becoming the most overrated tool in the game. Like,
when you talk about like okay, Nathan McKinnon is 24 miles an hour, and like this guy on his team is so slow. He's only 23.2. It's like at that 0.8, like, you know, yeah, maybe he's getting through, or like even, you know, even driving in a car, like, you know, you're driving 23 versus 22, and like 1 mile an hour is fast, but how many times during a game does a D-man maybe not have his gap taken away, or the center being above taken away, that, or you have to go around? Like, absolutely, there's going to be times where guys can get to that full bore from literally blue line to far side, but like that's literally our job, or the centerman's job, to get above these McDavids, McKinnons, Brayden Point, like these guys that can fly. But I think from the teams I've played on that have had success, and teams that have come in and I've played on, been like, wow, like that was like forecheck is everything. Like the forecheck controls, because when I get off of after my shift and I sit down, I'm grabbing water, I'm looking at my D partner and be like, this is what we're in for all night. Like we're gonna have these guys coming flying at us all night long. Like this isn't gonna be fun. And on the other side of things, if we get in, we're turning pucks over, we're getting pucks and getting ozone time and out changing them. It's just like, oh, this is how it's going to be tonight. Unreal. You know, this is going to be a treat. So there's definitely, I think the forecheck is just so crucial.
Yeah. The skating speed is overblown. The playing fast is the new thing, right? Like in terms of decision making, whether you have that split second you're talking about, but the difference between 23.4 and 24 miles an hour or whatever, like going back and within that snap judgment, either making a play or just bumping it off and living to fight another day. All throughout the ice in all three zones, I feel like that, like playing fast versus skating fast, is a very important delineation. We've already seen it. I remember like the Penguins teams that won back-to-back cups under Mike Sullivan, right? That was like the trademark of theirs, because they didn't necessarily have a bunch of Blazers, but they just played so fast as a connective team.
But they were a pure punt and hunt team.
Yes.
They were like one of the first teams, I feel like, that began to disrupt the possession-based game that, you know, Quenneville's Blackhawks and the LA Kings under Sutter
Kane
played.
back, bring Taves back,
right? The roller hockey
through.
breakouts, and then I feel like that Penguins team, I remember them really well because that was just pure punt and hunt. And then the Predators team they met in the finals was the same, even though they had a bunch of talented puck movers. It was like if Yossi wasn't on the ice, that was just going glassing out.
And the big thing about, you know, playing fast is it's not necessarily like get the puck and move it as quick as possible. It's almost like your forwards and D knowing where that puck's going. So, you know, like you look at a team like Florida, like, and you know, that's going to be the bar. They've just won back-to-back. They've been to the Cup final 3 times in a row. But looking at their team, you're not like, you know, you got the Verhaeghes and you've got, you know, the Forslings and these guys that can absolutely burn. But you've also got like a guy like Barkov and Kachuk. You're not going to be like those guys are like, you know, 2 of the fastest guys in the league. But they know when their D-men go back in a certain situation, okay, maybe if there's a soft chip, it's probably coming up the strong side. I can start going there. Hey, the puck's probably going over. I can start going there. And even for the weak side D-man, if I'm, you know, on overs, for instance, if I'm going D to D and I know my partner is not going to be coming back to me, I can start going. I can be in that hole for that fourth man's ice. I can be available for an extra spot. So instead of it being a flip and almost, like you said, a punt, you know, we're going to have exit with possession. We're going to be able to come out. Same thing in the ozone. You know, if a puck's going into a certain area and that guy knows where his support's going to be, he knows he's got to bump to the middle, or he knows he's got a weak side rim. He knows his D-man's going to be at the far side on the blue line. Like, it just makes things easier and, you know, again, playing faster as opposed to like just, you know, being faster.
Well, and what enables that, we've talked a lot about the, you know, the direction from a business perspective, the league's changing with the new CBA kicking in next year, and how I think with the cap going up as well, it's going to make it easier for teams to stick together for the most part. Like where there's a will, there's a way, and we just saw with Florida, like you win, you're successful, guys want to stay there, you have the room to accommodate it, and so I think that level of continuity as well plays into that as well, kind of knowing where everyone's going to be, everyone being part of that well-oiled machine. And so I do wonder, like, if we're going to push even further in that direction with teams just having the same group of guys. There's going to be, certainly, especially if you're successful, guys price themselves out, go to new places for a payday. But we're moving away from that era where, like, you win a cup and your entire third line and your second pair D all of a sudden goes somewhere else, as we saw with Tampa during the flat cap. Like, that's probably not going to be a reality anymore. And so I think it's going to become an even bigger facet of the game.
100%. And that's, those conversations go on in between shifts, in between periods. You know, there's a reason why when, you know, I know McDavid and Draisaitl are 2 of the best in the world to ever play the game, but like when they go together, they know exactly where the other guy is going to be. You know, Marner, Matthews, you know, Point, Kucherov. You can really go down of guys that, like, you know, even Brader and Jack, like Jack and Brader. I mean, it was a treat to watch when those two get together, because they think the game the same and they can execute it that way too.
You had you played for the Capitals. You played with Joe Thornton and company with the Sharks. So you've actually seen some of the like best examples that we could come up with in the hard cap era of teams where they've had enough continuity.
Yeah.
That we started to see weird stuff like the, you know, eyes in the back of the head, John Carlson, Ovechkin, Tom Wilson, you know, TJ Oshie back in the day. I mean, those guys just knew exactly where one another was. Backstrom before, obviously, the injuries caught up to them. When we think about the idea of continuity and sort of the chemistry that teams are going to be able to build, does that change in any way how you have to approach defending guys? Like, is there things you have to be aware of with Draisaitl, McDavid, where it's like, oh, I don't have to be aware of that with other people?
We only have 50 minutes here. I don't think he's going to be able to go through everything. But
you know what I'm saying?
I mean,
because I'm excited about it as a fan, but as a guy whose job is to stop all the stuff that I'm going to enjoy.
Come on, guys, let's communicate at least once. Be on different pages.
I mean, I feel like there's only so many new things that can really come out. Like, I don't know how much you can, you know, reinvent the wheel offensively, but, you know, it seems like, look at like power plays this year. I think we're at another all-time high, so obviously they're figuring something out.
Not when they're playing the Devils.
Not when they're coming to Newark. No, but like it's just little stuff of how much homework's done, and guys got their skills coaches, and you're watching so much of teams, like, you know, like these coaches watch video and video and video, and when, you know, for us as teams and players, we got meeting after meeting after meeting. And I think that, you know, during the regular season is when there really is new things, because in playoffs it's like there's no stone unturned, and really it comes down to the competitiveness and like really, like, I know everything about you. I know everything about what your line does, what you as a player do, what you bring. But whereas during the regular season, I feel like that's a little bit of trial and error. Like, obviously over an 82 game schedule, you got a bit more runway to really do that. But, you know, a lot of us as players, like, I mean, I love watching hockey. I love, like, obviously playing hockey, but, you know, I'm watching lots of highlights and seeing how things are going as well as a lot of other guys in the league. So it's not like when you play a team maybe from the West and you're like, oh, geez, wow, I've never seen that before. It's like, you know, you've for the most part seen trends that guys have, things they like to try, you know, and guys are coming down on you have a pretty good idea. Is this guy a passer? You know, is Joe Thornton passing the puck? Probably 99%, and he's still probably going to sauce it over me. But, you know, when other guys come in too, like, there's a good chance Austin Matthews probably going to rip this thing, you know. So it's picking up on that. I think that's part of being a pro too, is knowing your opponent and knowing, you know, maybe the line you're matched up against, or who you're, you know, going to be seeing on the other side, who their best players are, what their stuff looks like. So there's a lot of that for sure.
Well, let's take our break here, and then when we come back, we'll jump right back in. We're going to close out today's show with Brenden Dillon. You're listening to the Hockey PDOcast, streaming on the Sportsnet Radio Network. We're back here on the Hockey PDOcast, joined by Thomas Drance and our good buddy Brenden Dillon. Let's keep it going. You know, I've been thinking a lot about this and prepping for today's show, in looking at your career, because, you know, you've been fortunate to be in the league for a long time now, and just how much things have changed. One of your years in Dallas, I think it might have been the year you wound up being traded, but that was the year in 2014-15 when Jamie Benn won the Art Ross on the final night with 87 points, right? And
Crazy.
You look at it now, I think like 16 guys had more than that
last
season.
Top 10.
Like 12 guys had more than 90 points last season. To put that into perspective, I think like when you were first coming into the league, it was like the peak or nadir, depending on your perspective, if you're a forward or a goalie, where the save percentage league wide was 915. This year it's 900, and just kind of trying to frame how much it's changed. I imagine from like a preparation perspective, it's changed so much, not just like the tools available to you, technology, everyone buying in, whether it's all the training in the off season, the skills coaches for some of these forwards, and then in season, whether it's prepping for your opponents, making sure your body's right. I imagine like it's just night and day from 2013 when you first started to what it's looking like 2025 right now.
Well, my whole argument for it being hard to score in the league went a lot easier when the top guy had 87 points. Now when guys have 110, 115, it's like why don't you score more goals? It's like, well, you know, I was too busy passing it to Doug Gill here. No, I'm just kidding. But it's it is really crazy to see, it's I guess 13, this will be 14 years, 13, 14 years, how much things have changed and just how much more important the practice time is and the off ice time is. And when you go back to summer, in your summers and you're working on your game, like it doesn't matter if you're a fourth line guy playing 6 minutes a night, or you're top guy in your team. Like you've got to continue to work on your game, because we've all seen, whether that's guys getting moved out, like a team will find a way to get somebody else that can do the job. So also just I think having, not being vanilla, I don't know if that makes sense, like having a role and what you bring. If you're a third line player, are you bringing energy? Are you, forechecking? Are you able to, if you're only chipping in with 5-10 goals, what else are you bringing? If you're a defensive defenseman, can you, are you being physical? Are you a shot blocker? Do you have a good stick? Like what else can you bring to the table? And I think before it was almost just like, okay, you're a veteran player. Yeah. Oh yeah. This guy's got 300, 400 games. Yeah. We'll sign him. I think he scores a bunch of goals. Whereas now, I mean, free agency every year we see after, the first couple of days, there's like that lull. And, I know like Tanner Jeannot, Steele raised a lot of eyebrows, but like he has an identity, like he has, like you know exactly what you're getting from him, for 82 games a year. Obviously a guy like Mitch Marner, you know exactly what you're getting out of him, for those 82 regular
Two
season
very
games.
similar players.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like for those guys and just the league in general, like there are a lot of times when you're looking at depth charts and you're, doing a pre-scout on a team, like you're going through and that team for the most part has an identity, but also the individuals within it, which again is changed a lot by how important the off season is. And it doesn't matter if these guys coming in are 20 years old, like they're already got their routines in. They're basically living on a roller all day and band work and all this stuff, which is it's pretty impressive to see.
I feel like the accessibility has changed so much too from a prep perspective, right? Because you're talking about looking at the highlight reels. There was once a time where, especially if you're a team in the opposite conference, you're like, you're just turning it on every night and maybe seeing a couple highlights of the stuff that worked and the goals, but not really getting the full report. And now in 2025, you're following Dim Filipovic on Twitter. You're seeing all the clips of
Gus Forsling mixtapes,
defensive plays, exactly,
and
that's why I wanted to have you on. I mean, obviously you're a great dude, but I love the way you think about the game, and you're a fellow nerd, and I say that in the most loving way, where you're messaging me on a random weeknight in February where you're like, oh, like you see that Dillon Sandberg stick check that he had, and I'm like, did I see it, buddy? That's already saved for a future reel.
I'll be up next week.
I'm curious. Tom and I were kind of kicking our ideas of what we wanted to talk about with you, and one of them was I want you to build out a list of your, like, the guys that you are most intrigued by in terms of like studying either what they're doing, trying to pick up little tricks of the trade that you can apply to your own game, or you're just a fan of watching their tape. Like who are your favorite shutdown defensemen, I think, to watch or keep an eye on, or who do you have the most respect for at the position amongst your peers?
I mean, my favorite D-man, early on in my career and even before I started was like Shea Weber was a guy that I just wanted to be Shea Weber. This guy is just the man, he impacted the game in so many facets. He's a fellow BC guy, so I think that was pretty cool for me to look and see like, geez, like a guy that's that good and that impactful is from around here. But guys in this, like, still playing right now that I like to watch, like Devon Taves, I think is just an elite guy. I think Drew Doughty's a guy that I know obviously he's getting older now, but he's a guy that you have on the ice when you're trying to defend a lead 6-5, or also when you're 5-on-6 and trying to score and vice versa. So at the same time, we all are able to watch the big guy like the Cale Makars and the Quinn Hugheses and these guys, Roman Yossi's. But for me individually, like a Devon Taves, I'm a big fan of a guy like Josh Manson. I really I'm a big fan of his game. Sandberg's a guy too that I was able to play with for 3 years and see.
You're understudy.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, he's.
I don't know. I think you should be getting a portion of this upcoming payday.
I keep telling him. I said, hey, you know what? Like, he hasn't signed yet, so maybe there's a chance for me to sneak in there and grab a couple bucks from him. This year Brett Pesce too. Like Pesce is a guy that. It's so funny. Again, we talked earlier about when you play with somebody and you could see how impactful they can be. Pesce's got an unbelievable stick. The amount of times where guys would be, whether it's trying to chip it in on him or, rim it to, start a forecheck, and he's knocking that down. Not just knocking it down, but finding the next play, which is half the battle. So, I guess those guys, Devon Taves, Pesce,
Yep.
Those guys, Manson.
Yeah, I can't do this conversation without dropping in Gus Forsling. I know you joked about.
Yeah,
the
I mean,
mistake,
like
but man,
Forsling, Slavin, like those guys are just like everybody's.
You're
fan of
not
those
you're not
guys.
trying to learn from them because you're like they're freaks.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
gonna leave
they're
that to them.
It's just so funny because like I asked Pesh about Slavin like right when we came in,
Yeah.
and I was like, all right, like what does this guy eat? What does this guy do? Like, what is he like? How does he get to that level? And I know his Four Nations was kind of his coming out party because of people being able to see like, wow, like how did he get a stick on that, or how did he block that, or how did he like impact that, right? And I just think those guys are, everybody's learning from those guys. Maybe not everybody's watching, Dillon Sandberg or, Devon Taves or Brett Pesce, which I think, for defensemen like myself, we all should be for sure.
Yeah, I feel like to answer your question on what Slavin's doing on his off time, he's probably got like dolls of all the best forwards in the league.
Yeah.
And he's just like putting pins in them and just,
like you will
torturing
not
them.
you will not score.
Yeah.
And you will not score. And he's just, even watching him in playoffs, man, like his gaps, just
His range is
goes
the
up.
entire ice surface.
Yep.
It's like wherever the puck is, his stick will probably be around there,
Yep.
and he's gonna just either like disrupt the shot or
sure.
completely take it away.
That was the best moment from the final of the Four Nations, was that 3-on-2 where Slavin got down and blocked the Seth Jarvis rush chance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Jarvis obviously is used to being on the ice with him, and you could just see it in his face. He was like, "Oh, this is what other people are dealing with."
I knew that he would do that. Yeah. And those are the things too. Is I think like that system for Slavin is absolutely perfect too. Like you never know, right? Like how guys would be in other systems,
Right?
In different neutral zones or different D zones, and there's a lot of that goes into, which I think like a team like Florida has like perfectly, okay, we need this and this guy, for this role and to plug in for that, like whatever that might be. Like who knows, Jeff Petrie might come in this year and just be up for the Norris. You never know. Like
I mean, that's the best spot in the business. The Oliver Ekman Larson,
Nate Schmidt
Memorial.
Petrie,
Yeah, just get in
yeah.
there and another 3-4 year deal down the line. Yeah, I mean that's a great. So yeah, I've come a long way on that as well, right? Like where I think when I first started in this industry, you take everything at face value or in a vacuum from the perspective of like, just look at this guy's production, look at his metrics, and just judge it based on that. And then especially for the defense position, I think like coming to terms with the impact that the environment has, not only from what your coach is asking you to do. I think you and I spoke about it earlier, where sometimes, just watching it from the outside, you could be critical of a decision in terms of, oh, you went off the glass and out, he made a safe play, he's sagging back in terms of his rush coverage, when in reality, he's executing the game plan to a T.
Yeah.
That's exactly what the coach did, and you go back and watch the video the next day, and you're flying under the radar, and the coach isn't calling you out for being over-aggressive or making a decision he didn't want you to make, and the impact that has on that, not to mention playing in New Jersey, for example, like I imagine your responsibilities going back and play the puck are much different than maybe somewhere else with less talented forwards, where for you go back, Jack Hughes is going to be coming down low. Generally, the good play is get him the puck and let him cook and weave through the neutral zone, as opposed to somewhere else where maybe they'd be like, all right, well, we actually need you to skate this one out, and then what that's going to do to your numbers and how you look on tape. So I think that's a huge thing.
And that's a lot of stuff too that, I think there's that always going to be a fine line of the analytics with like the eye test, right? And watching, and if you watch a team 5-10 times, which is really a sample size at that point, you see how they are, right? Like, are they a sitting back, Guy Boucher 1-3-1 where they don't cross the blue line? Are they a team that's all out forecheck, and of course they're going to have great gaps, in a Carolina where they throw the puck every now and then? Oh geez, this guy's Corsi is out of the league, right? Out of this league. So there's a bunch of different things that come into it. Who your D partner is, who your line mates are, who you're playing against, where you're starting. There's so many different things that come into effect, before you're judging players. And I think that's something over the last couple of years, you talk about the game changing from 2012-13. It's changed a lot.
Well, another thing we're seeing is just lower shot volume, right? We're seeing teams possess to defend, right? Do more of that grind your opponent down slowly over the course of 3 or 4 heavy shifts consecutively. Get the icing, now they're cooked. So we're seeing a lot more of that. We're also seeing, I think, partly, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this as a D-man, we're seeing forwards, I think, get a lot cagier, and teams get a lot smarter about sort of layered traffic and how they shoot through it and what they're sort of looking at in terms of fooling goaltenders. With that, how's that impacted your sort of experience stationary attacking in the O-zone.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, we're not seeing slap shots anymore,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
We're seeing
yeah.
a lot more placement, a lot more
100%.
placement through, based off of where your teammates are. I mean, how
Yeah.
different is that these days?
Well, a lot of D-men now, like it's like, okay, if I can't box out this 6'5" forward, it's like, okay, I'm blocking the shot. Like that was a
Right.
big thing that Vegas did a couple years ago was, like
Yeah,
they're
fronting everything.
fronting everything. And, if you're able to get the right block, like maybe the right bounce goes and you got a 3-on-2 the other way. And, that's part of it too. If you ask any goaltender, like they want shot volume, they want to feel the puck, they want to feel good. They, especially early in a game, like there's all like freebies where you're just throwing it from the wall or a D-man wristing it from the blue line. I mean, on an NHL goaltender, you're not scoring on those. And so I think that's something that we talked about. The save percentage is going down, the average per se. Well, a lot of these goal scorers aren't wasting shots. Like, Ovi's still going to have 8-10 shots a night, but a lot of those are one-timers or opportune chances to really actual score. And it's talked about a little bit in pre-scouts, and hey, especially on a Shesterkin or a Vasilevsky or the higher end goalies, like you got to make them work for that. And it's something for as defensemen too. Like box outs are so huge. D-men, you see a lot of bigger D, like that's our job. Like box that guy out. Don't let the puck get to the net. You also see a lot of goals that are just going in off shin pads, that are bouncing 3, 4, 5 times and find their pinball on their way in. So there's a fine line on both, where getting the box out or blocking the shot versus, when to pick and choose your shots towards the net.
What sort of next do you think about where the game's going, or try to do the old be ahead of the play thing in terms of what you're working on or thinking about in the off season, like this summer? For
sure. I think that's, again, part of yourself growing your own game to then in turn help the team. But for defensemen and for myself and my specific skill set, like breaking the puck out, going back for it and hitting that middle as cleanly as possible, making those reads, which are hard to do in the summer because you're not really getting hit in the summer and you're not really going full bore, and it's not a lot of like 5-on-5, let's work on breakouts, guys. At the same time too, ozone stuff, like getting pucks through is such a crucial thing. And watching guys like Zach Werenski that have fantastic years, and the wrist shot and finding that lane, and it doesn't matter if you're Brenden Dillon or you're Cale Makar. Like your job, your expectation when you get the puck in the ozone is to be able to get that to the net. If you're on the ice in an NHL hockey game in the best league in the world, not getting that blocked, at least furthering the play, in a positive manner, making the right play in the O zone or D zone is just, that's the expectation, and as it should be.
Well, in terms of that processing and the kind of the snap judgments and decision making, it's interesting hearing you talk about that, because in watching the playoffs, something I kept noticing and coming back to was like when you'd watch Florida play, just how like they'd work it up to the point. Ekblad would go to DD to Forsling, and I think you become conditioned, and Forsling certainly can just uncork a massive bomb from the point, but more often than not, it would be he like fake that he's gonna fire it on net, and then just work it back down and re-engage the cycle, and all of a sudden they get it to Kachuk below the net. He'd try to get into the slot to Bennett. If that fails, you essentially just do that all over again, and that kind of ties into what you're saying about shot volume going down in general. But I feel like the responsibilities for defensemen have increased so much as the game's gotten more nuanced as well, right? I feel like it's always been a difficult position. I'm sure like it must have been even more physically demanding in the past if you're a defensive defenseman, in terms of like all the just punishment you're going to have to go through on a day-to-day basis every time you play. But in terms of the responsibilities, the decision-making, what you're being tasked to do both with and without the puck, I feel like making all those decisions is more difficult than ever, because there's so much more stuff to account for now as everyone's trying to optimize their approach, right? It's much less cookie cutter, and now it's much more like you've got 4 options ahead of you, and it's going to be up to your processing speed to, on the fly, make that real time kind of judgment on what to do.
Well, there's exactly that is reading the play, like who's coming in on me. Is it Mitch Marner coming on me? Is it Sam Bennett coming in on me? When I get that puck now, like maybe our pre-scout or how we would like to attack this is we want to go over on that. But maybe there's a guy standing there, and now it's not just like, okay, shut your brain off, go back. Yep, this is the play. We bump it over and we keep it going. It's like, well, there's a guy standing there. So now, okay, boom, like, you're thinking through your head, now I got to turn up. Oh, now there's a guy there. Okay, what's option number C that you need to make? And like as we were saying earlier, like sometimes the right play is the high flip out, the punt, and kind of just get it out of your zone. But sometimes there's a lot more plays to be made. And again, in the best league in the world, like the expectation is, you want to get that puck to Jack Hughes. You want to get that puck to Jesper Bratt. Like that's my job, and I enjoy it. I understand it, but it's definitely evolved a lot.
I'm curious
the last 10 years.
for the risk profile and kind of how this stuff's being weighed internally. If you're having a tape session after, or you're going through it, whatever, is the focus still? Because I feel like before it must have been so much in terms of like risk prevention from like if you make a mistake, that's going to be called out and kind of harped on, and you don't do that again. You're going to get your hand slapped a little bit. Yeah. Whereas now I do wonder, especially with like this more modernized approach, younger coaches coming in, more of an offensive agenda, how much of it is like not leaving stuff on the table as well, right? In terms of that decision making of like, yeah, sure, this didn't result in a goal against, but maybe we could have created something more. And then maybe if you make that not a mistake, but you make that judgment, you come off the ice, all of a sudden now the next line and next D pair is at a bit of a disadvantage because all of a sudden now they're stuck in their own zone, as opposed to the opposite, where you get to kind of snowball those 3-4 shifts in the O zone and really kind of grind on the opposition. Well,
that's putting your the next D pair out in a good spot, putting your next forward line, like setting your team up, and that is the ultimate thing, right? You're playing the team game. You want your team to win the hockey game. You want to put them in the best situation you can. So those are all the decisions that when I'm going back for a puck, like time of the game. Is it the first shift of the game where we're trying to kind of get our feet wet and get the momentum? Like maybe that high risk play, that saucer pass over a stick, maybe I'm not making that play then, right? Are we up 3-0? It's like, yeah, okay. If something was to go,
let's go for 4.
Yeah, exactly. like maybe if they were to score, like that's okay. Are we down a goal? Are we up a goal? Just time and place, and that's having a feel, and experience comes into play on that, right? Like younger guys on your team, those are conversations you're having. Like, hey, maybe like next game when you have that last man back, that the Hojag on the blue line is probably not the play. And those things just come with just understanding again where you're at.
Do the 2 extra games coming in after this season, do those have your eye in terms of?
I mean, the 2 extra regular season to take away the 3 or 4 exhibitions, like I think that's a trade-off we take all day long.
Right.
Just strictly on the sense of like, when you're playing, whether it's a junior team in the first couple games of the preseason, or a guy that's coming in just trying to make a name for himself and not injure people, but run around like a donkey. Like, sure. I think that's like taking that off, and then actually getting the reps that you want to and the game situations that you want to is way more important. And then you throw in the fact of 2 regular season games that are meaningful towards your playoff seeding, making the play, all that stuff. I think is fine. I mean, I don't know, 2 games to a college guy coming out of University of Michigan or Wisconsin, maybe he's going to be a little bit more toll than a guy that's coming out of junior that's been in the league for a little bit.
I wanted to ask you, because you were a BCHL guy. WHL guy,
yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to get your thoughts on, sorry, you were an undrafted guy though.
Yes.
Right.
I don't like drafts. No. I don't like drafts. I don't like NHL drafts, WHL drafts.
He's more of a free
BCHL.
Market guy.
Yeah. Fair.
Yeah. What are you offering? Like, what's your depth chart look like? Maybe then we'll talk. Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate that. I think draft is only what it means, right, on the day of.
Yeah.
In terms of the changes that we're seeing, though, with some of those college guys getting paid big money, in terms of WHL guys being able to go and get that college experience, the weekend warrior experience in world-class gym facilities. I mean, a pretty good life for those college players. What are your thoughts on that as a guy who didn't take the traditional path necessarily to the NHL?
Yeah, well, I was trying to get, I don't know, I saw Kent Johnson this morning. I was trying to get out of him, like, how much is that Caden Lindstrom getting to go to Michigan State? Like,
oh, man.
Could Michigan not match that? Like you guys are really going to let him go to rival? Like, when I heard that McKenna was getting, like, a couple $100,000, right? Was that what the rumor was?
I think he's making, like, the same amount as Samuskevich is going to make on the Panthers this year.
Or like $700K,
Yeah,
so, like, you wonder what the ripple down effect is. And, I mean, obviously, this McKenna really changes the game. He's probably going to go top 3, 5, whatever it is. Top one, yeah. Hey, as a Western League guy, I hope he goes 1. Like, that's just good for the league. To answer your question, Drancer, like, I really think that it changes everything, right? Because that was the big thing. If I play 1 WHL game, like, I can't do the BCHL in college. And now it's almost like, I think I saw a couple of the kids on, I think, Tri-City that were either first-round picks or going to be high drafted that are gone. And, like, that changes your whole, WHL team, right? Like, you have a first ballot guy. I remember when I think it was Johnny Taves went first overall to Tri-Cities and didn't end up going. He ended up going North Dakota. Like that's like an organizational changer, right? Because now you're talking about players that you wanted to bring in that probably aren't going to come anymore because they don't have a chance to play with whoever. Or as you said, the facilities at some of these universities are just like insanity, like way better than NHL, American League setups. So
better than NFL.
NFL. No, I know.
Yeah,
I've heard some of these, and talking to some of the guys that have gone to the North Dakotas and gone to these other schools. I've heard Michigan State's is like next level. I remember that. It's crazy. So I think those things, and then on top of that, you're going to get paid. Like, I mean, I was getting paid whatever it was, like $180 every 2 weeks, which is like big money balling. And
Drinks on me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
not too many though.
No, well, Seattle, we didn't even have any 21-year-olds, so that wasn't
nice.
happening in Seattle, the Western League. But it changes everything. It's obviously will be interesting to see maybe when we look back 5-10 years from when this just started happening. But you're talking about games like in college. I still think they're playing around 40 to 50 games, right? Like juniors are still 60 to 70, which is closer to an NHL schedule. The travel, getting on a bus from Seattle to Brenden, like you can't emulate that flying on a Michigan PJ across to stuff. So it's different.
Wolverine's air.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, but who knows?
All right, guys. Well, we got to wrap it up. This was a blast. You know what? I think the audition with Tom here is the third seat.
Yeah.
Pass the test.
Yes.
I think we're gonna have to do this
He
again
can come
next
back.
summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come back. Yeah.
We'll
Thanks,
see.
guys.
He's still got to prove himself over the next year or so, but we'll temporarily.
I'll do the
pencil him
dirty
in.
work.
Yeah.
I'll go in the corners.
You'll be the grinder.
Yeah. That's okay.
All right, Brenden, this was awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming on. It was a blast. Hopefully the feedback's as good this year, and we can do this again. Have a great season coming up, and enjoy the rest of the summer. Thank you to everyone for listening to us. Drance and I will be back tomorrow with another fun episode planned. We've done an agent, we've done a player. We'll see
who's next
NHL job we have next. That's a very exciting tease there for those that are still listening. Give us 5-star reviews wherever you listen to the show, and thank you for listening to the Hockey PDOcast streaming on the Sportsnet Radio Network.